Good morning, children. Today our chapter Biodiversity and its conservation, and the topic which we have to study today is why should we conserve biodiversity and how should we conserve biodiversity. These two topics I will like to explain you. Before this I have already told you certain things. For example, I have told you what is biodiversity, I have told you a pattern of biodiversity, factors on which biodiversity depends, and I have also told you about loss of biodiversity. So this is the topic which we are going to discuss today as such. Now there are certain reasons why should we conserve biodiversity. There are three reasons have been given here. First one is narrowly utilitarian argument, second one is broadly utilitarian argument, and the third one is ethical issues, that is arguments. Now let us first of all talk about narrowly utilitarian argument. Narrowly utilitarian argument, as you know, is actually, we know that the plants are very important for us in a way that they provide us food, medicines, furniture. About 25% of the total medicines is derived from plants. So naturally, from economics point of view, from economy point of view, plant is very important, and that is the reason why we should conserve plants as well as biodiversity. Now there are certain groups of people who have a different, who think very differently, in a different manner. These arguments of those people have been put in broadly utilitarian argument. Now let us talk about broadly utilitarian argument. You know that pollination of plants is performed by ecosystem, that is, plants is responsible for pollination, plant is responsible for purity of air, plant is responsible for oxygen that we get. When we go out in the area, we find that the air is very fresh. That is a different kind of feeling. We cannot put a price tag on that particular feeling. So those things are put in broadly utilitarian argument. Those say that not only from the economy point of view, but from other things also, we should conserve biodiversity as such. Now there are certain other groups of people, those arguments we have put in another bracket, and that is ethical issues. In this whole earth, we are not only the species, there are so many other organisms which live on our earth. Every organism, every species has the right to live. Human beings should not consider themselves as the only species living on the earth. And as human beings, we should preserve other animals. It is our moral duty to preserve animals so that our future generations can benefit from them. So this have been put in another group, that is ethical arguments as such. Okay, now the other topic which we will study, that is how should we conserve biodiversity. What are the ways of conserving biodiversity? So we have two ways of conserving biodiversity. Two ways how we can conserve biodiversity. First one is called as in situ conservation. First one is in situ conservation. Now what do you mean by this? In situ conservation, we used to conserve animals and plants in their own habitat in the wild. Now this habitat can be a national park, wildlife sanctuary, biosphere reserve. That is their own habitat as such. You know that we cannot conserve all the area. So only a limited area we can conserve, and you know there are so many reasons why we cannot do so. We should have land for building cities, factories also, agricultural land also. So there have to be some specific area, we can only conserve that particular area. In this world, there are areas which have maximum biodiversity, and these are called as hot spots. There are certain areas in this world which are called as hot spots, and they have the maximum biodiversity. Moreover, many of the species living in this area are endemic. That means they are not found in other areas as such. They are found in only one particular habitat, and outside that particular habitat they are not found. So those species are called to be endemic. 2% of the entire world comes under hotspot. That is the most biodiverse area. There are 34 hotspots, mega biodiverse area in this world, and out of these 34 hotspots, 3 of them are present in our own country. Now let us take. Thank you. Have a very nice day. So I am going to draw a rough diagram of India just in order to show in which part of the area these 3 hotspots are present. See, this is the Western Ghat, western part. So this area along with Sri Lanka, this is the one hotspot. Then the second hotspot is Indo-Burma border, this line, northeast part of India. This is again another hotspot. And the third hotspot is Eastern Ghat. Here the animals are endemic, they are found in this particular area only, not in other area. So naturally these are the areas which need special protection, special conservation, and these are hotspots. It is believed that if we protect only 2% of these hotspots which are distributed in entire world, we will be able to reduce 30% of the continuing mass extinction of animals, 30%. So naturally this is our priority as such. Now in situ conservation we have about 14 biosphere reserve in India. Here animals and plants are being protected. Then we have about 438 wildlife sanctuaries, which here the animals and plants are also protected. Then we have about 90 national parks in India. Where animals and plants have been preserved. Apart from that, in certain communities in India, they keep a separate forest land and they used to protect it. Many of these lands are present in India also. Many of these communities in India do protect certain tracts of land. They keep aside that particular tract of land, and they have and they protect it. Now, these are called as sacred groves. Sacred groves. Such tracts of land which are protected by different communities living in India are called as sacred groves. For example, Kashi and Jaintia hills of Meghalaya is one of the sacred group. Second is Chanda, Bastar and Sarguja districts of Madhya Pradesh. Third one is Aravali Hills, and the fourth one is Western Ghats. Western Ghats in India. These are sacred groves. Many of the threatened and endangered species have been protected in these sacred groves by different communities. Now, let us talk about Xc2 method of preservation. We have already discussed in situ method, and now we will be discussing Xc2 method of conservation. Conserving plants and animals outside their natural habitat is called as Xc2 conservation. This means that these plants and animals are taken out from their natural habitat and are protected in a special area. Now, question comes, what are these special areas? What are they called? For example, in botanical garden, plants have been protected. They are given special care. Then we have zoological parks in which animals have been protected. And the third one is wildlife safari, in which animals have been protected. So these are the three examples of Xc2 conservation, where animals and plants are protected under special conditions, but that is not their natural habitat. If the plant or the animal is endangered in its own area, they will be taken out from that particular area and they will be separately kept in a special environment, and that is called as Xc2 conservation. These are the examples of Xc2 conservation. Today, due to development of modern science, modern technology, many other things have been included in Xc2 conservation. For example, in case of plants, we employ tissue culture in order to increase the number of endangered plants. Then there are certain seed banks and pollen banks. We also take the help of cryopreservation in these two things, seed banks and pollen banks, and then we can also take the help of cryopreservation in preserving sperms and ovum, and then later on it can be fertilized. That is called as in vitro fertilization. So in today's class we have studied about why should we conserve biodiversity and how should we conserve biodiversity. I hope you have understood this topic as well, and you are very clear with this topic. Thank you. Have a very nice day.